since Russia was isolated, India actually buying a lot of cheap Russian oil. But what they do with this is they sell to their Western powers, which they actually maintain friendship with. So, namely, is Israel and other European country. So, India benefiting as a third party here just by selling, redirecting some fuel towards India and then ship it back to Europe. So this is the kind of game that India play as a founding members of Brics. Welcome back to another episode of Competitive Council. And as we promised, we talk about the different axes from America. And that would be what are they?
That would be the Russian Federation, but not just them exclusively, because we know Russia has been trying to market a new type of grouping, which kind of counters a lot of the Western pairings and Western organizations of different states, and that would be the Brics here. So, Hafiz, what's so important about the Brics this time around? Because we talked about it several times, and we only talk about when something big happens, something must have happened.
They just concluded the Brics Summit 2024 that happened in Kazan, Russia. And I will not go through everything, the resolutions that they come up with, whatever, but I will focus on certain member countries that made some highlight this time around. So first off, I would like to go with the country that is quite near to us, which is India. Now, if you see India in Brics, they don't really make a lot of sort of statement or whatever. But because that would be the role of Vladimir Putin or some other members, Xi Jinping as well. But what you want to see India as the founding members, they also play some sort of very neutral game. Like Malaysia is trading country. But for India, it's a different level because India another highlight they make is Narendra Modi actually met with Xi Jinping to sign an agreement on a border crisis. That's a good thing. But another thing that we also want to focus on is that India is, dealing with other countries in Brics that actually playing both sides of Israel and Palestine, because they would say that they are in support of ceasefire in Israel, but also at the same time, they supplying drones and ammunitions to the Israelis. So this is to contradict, but of course they're playing two sides. That's understandable. For the Russian as well, they condemn the invasion of Ukraine, and they want it to be a peace as well. And since Russia was isolated, India actually buying a lot of cheap Russian oil. But what they do with this is they sell to their Western powers, which they actually maintain friendship with. So namely is Israel and other European country. So India benefiting as a third party here just by selling, redirecting some fuel towards India and then ship it back to Europe. So this is the kind of game that India play as a founding members of Brics. And another country that I would like to highlight also in this member is Malaysia, actually. Even though we are not the full-fledged member, but Malaysia was represented by Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli, and in his speech, he mentioned two things. First, he mentioned about the Gaza, Palestinian people, where they want to, as a collectively, Brics should condemn, and they did, the aggression of Israel in Palestine. And another thing is talk about potential of Malaysia being a hub of semiconductor. So this is another push in terms of world peace and also economics. What do you think so far in terms of Brics, influencing, since Anwar Ibrahim announced the intention of Malaysia wants to join Brics?
Well, I think seeing how Brics is now would be to look at how many new members they've inducted. key being Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, which all happens to have a anti-Western sentiment carried, a connotation associated with them. They are very much for what's against what they call Western aggression or interference in the Middle East. At the same time, we look to not just these new members, but to new partners that have been inducted into the BRICS family, which is including one of its Malaysia. Other Southeast Asian countries would be Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. I think we talked about this last time, saying that Indonesia might be on the fence, but I think that on the fence has manifested to just being a partner. Who knows if Prabowo, the expression to go full membership, that could be a different story down the line. But to see that this expansion happened when Malaysia just announced that they're going to pursue this back in earlier this year, and to see it materialize in such a way with all these other neighbors and all these other contemporaries, right? Is to show that BRICS is starting to be galvanized along particular lines, fault lines, and I think those would have to be alternative economic axes compared to the traditional one, which is the Western liberal markets, right? There's this push to decouple that hegemony that the West has had with in terms of economic power and redistribute it back towards the more developing countries, which BRICS, and I've said this many times before, BRICS should not be seen as something of a military alliance. It is definitely not. It is an economic configuration of states that wants to do business with one another, that wants to enhance their own trade capacities with one another without having to rely on the hegemony that is the West, most notably the United States of America. I think the instability in terms of politics in the US and its involvement in all kinds of situations around the world has shown that it's not a worthwhile investment to rely so much on America for economic leadership across the globe. So, and this is a great way to decouple America from that, especially in Western institutions like the IMF and the World Bank, and set up alternatives, because there's a negative connotation, and I think mixed perception of the BRICS, which is that it's going to unseat, it's going to change everything, going to change world order. But the thing is, the BRICS have played along the rules of the international order. They've been very good rule keepers amongst each other. And we've seen that India and China signing a historic agreement to settle a border crisis that's been happening for 4 or 5 years already. So it shows that they do work within the frameworks that we take for granted. It's just that now it's with different players being more active. It's just the same, still playing by the same rule books. But it's ironically, these rules may be followed more to the letter compared to the West, which tends to flex its muscles in the name of international security and international respect for sovereignty, right? But they haven't had the best track record in that. So it provides an alternative here for everyone involved, especially since they have a grievance with the Western leadership, which isn't always the best. So Malaysia taking on this role, I think it's more to secure influence as early as we can, to say that being early adopters means that we have more say among like the upcoming newer members that has expressed interest in moving in. One more thing I want to mention is also the interest of countries like Turkey. We've seen Erdogan expressing interest as well in the BRICS. And this is very interesting because it is the only NATO country to express interest in this arrangement. And it does signal that it wants to play mediator. It wants to play sort of like a bridging role, very apt as well, because, you know, Istanbul is the crossroads of both Europe and Asia, the West and the East. So it makes a very good sense as well to play that role. But of course, this was not universally accepted amongst all the founding members. India is a bit skeptical because of Turkey's alliance and friendship with Pakistan, and we know India and Pakistan doesn't have the best relationship with each other, and alliances tend to build and fracture based on support for either of these two countries. So Turkey would be very active in pursuing this, and so that means it needs a lot of confidence building, a lot of engagement with India to diffuse any kind of tension that is present there. So it's very interesting. More players entering this group. But like I said, it's not going to challenge world order. Just like ASEAN doesn't challenge the world, or the African Union doesn't challenge the world, or neither does the Arab League or the Shanghai cooperation, whatever international cooperation, stuff like that. So it's redistributing power, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that BRIC is not a military pact or whatever sort because what they from repeatedly being said by at least the top five founding members president, especially Xi Jinping, which is the largest economy in that group. All they're saying is that they want peace, peace, peace. They want peace in Ukraine. They want peace in Gaza. They want peace in Sudan as well. So what is there to be, to talk about when these kind of groups that preach and wanting endorsing peace, but the other side would say like, oh, these are evil axis or whatever. They want world domination and enforce a new world order, some sort of the propaganda that being spit by the American mouthpiece. So we can see from their speeches, these presidents of these founding members of BRICS, they're endorsing peace, and even Xi Jinping in front of Putin saying that they want stop any aggressions towards an inch of land in Ukraine. So they want it stopped in front of Putin. So I guess only Xi Jinping can do that, not Rafizi Ramli, I guess. But my point that I want to highlight is that there's no one overruling one another. Unlike NATO, every time we want to vote for peace resolutions in Gaza, there's always one country or two countries that use their veto and say no to this. You know what country that is. So these are more rule-based, I would say, like you mentioned also, like these are the one that actually follow the rules and not the other. So it's ironically we talk about this and yes, BRICS, of course they want peace because it wants economic prosperity. And without peace, you cannot do trades. You cannot do business. The Chinese are so eager to export anything that you want, from your households to your new electric vehicle. Why would they want a peace why would they want a war in Ukraine? Why do we want a war in Gaza and also Sudan? So this is something that we need to pay attention to. And Malaysia also, now we are in this mix. Yeah, we are not full-fledged member yet, but I think moving forward, we can position ourselves better. As I mentioned that we are one of the early adopters, so we want to position ourselves better so that we can do strategically targeting countries that are already in the BRICS in terms of, reaching the new market in terms of semiconductors and whatnot. So this is a good play. Also, I think maybe Rafizi also knows about this. I'm sure meeting them physically there would spark into a certain discussion that would propel Malaysia to a better strategy in terms of economically speaking, at least. And another thing is that BRICS could be a new platform if ASEAN could some sort of have communication between Malaysia, representing not just Malaysia, Vietnam, Philippines, these countries that are affected directly from the 9-dash-line claims. So they collectively use ASEAN as a platform to engage China through BRICS as well. So these two sort of big group would have more weight than just Malaysia going to China, say, hey, no, stop these incursions of whatever, or Vietnam aggressively creating a new, artificial islands or whatever. Philippines as well struggling with China aggression. So through ASEAN and BRICS, I think that would work. Don't you think so?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to economic prosperity, shared economic prosperity within all member states, it would also make sense to bring something security concerns as well. So if everyone is a bit more coupled with each other, more interlinked with one another, then you would try to secure economic at the same time, military security as well amongst each other, because it's shared interests between all of them. So if it's able to say that, okay, if China can see that foregoing the claim or being a bit more softer, so to speak, with its 9-dash line claim with the South China Sea, if we can see the benefit of relaxing those narratives and seeing that the BRICS and even ASEAN member states in Southeast Asia can prosper with that relaxation of policy, then okay, so at the same time we benefit if there's nothing to pursue, because it's going to it's going to be more damaging than actually reaping dividends, right? So I think that's China is more economically minded compared to let's say the West. The West seems to have this moral responsibility to uphold prosperity and peace and stability on its own terms. It has to be on its own terms. China, I think, bends, bamboo diplomacy is something that is more widely adopted in this region. And I think China can be socialized or normalized into adopting that. Say, if you want to play in this arena now that more people are getting involved, let's say BRICS, even outside the region, that's going to be looking at this, then I think it would be more apt for the government in Beijing to look at as a possible benefit, so that everyone can enjoy the prosperity together. Another point about the BRICS is when it comes to leadership, like you said, the BRICS tend to not have a hierarchical structure. No original member tends to supersede the other. And I think this is a great baseline when it comes to setting up an organization such as this, especially because it is supposed to be multilateral. Everyone's supposed to have an equal voice. And I think the experience that China or India or Russia has had in negotiating tables with the West involved, there's always this sense of superiority that the West demonstrates, which doesn't allow the best representation from Russia, China, India that gets sidelined. Yet they provide huge influence, and economically speaking, for a lot of Western countries. Let's say the current market for the West wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Chinese labor. It wouldn't have been there in Europe without Russian energy, and definitely wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Indian labor as well. So this, as with BRICS, it allows more representation. I think that's the main point of why Malaysia wants to seek out closer ties with the BRICS, because I think in the recent years, compared to during the 90s, the Prime Minister, that's Anwar Ibrahim, who was seen sort of like a champion or even like an ally to the West, is slowly distancing himself from his friends in the IMF and the World Bank, and seeing that there is that benefit to aligning with non-Western players, and seeing that, okay, this is more democratic and this is more reform-minded in distributing power amongst the developing world. And that sort of ideologically tickles his brain, the ideological part of his brain, saying that, okay, we want to distribute power evenly amongst everyone to share prosperity of everyone. It is very much a solid logical conclusion for the Prime Minister and Malaysia to take. Malaysia is quite practical in this regard. So Malaysia's, I think, moving forward, Malaysia has made a good decision to be a part of something exciting. And if it doesn't work out 20, 30 years down the line, well, at least we've tried that experiment. And then we can move on to the next way on how multiple states can organize themselves.
Well, members of the BRICS organization represent about 40% of world's economy, world's GDP. So I think that speaks volume, especially when Vladimir Putin says that they want to secure this grain trade with other countries to secure public food security. And this is another good initiative from the Vladimir Putin to ensure that people that are not become victimized whenever there's war in, let's say, in Ukraine or in Gaza, so that the stability of food producing countries are not affected. So this is some sort of good thinking or good idea where we can everyone actually can be support of this. So there's no aggressions of other countries saying that we should start an invention or something like that. It's not unheard of in BRICS, and yet we are still have our not so good perceptions towards BRICS just because the founding members are China and Russia. Talking about China also and the 9-dash claim, I think I can draw some similarity between why Russia started the attack on Ukraine and why China also wants to do aggressive claim. It's due to their national security interests. Like China, apart from where the South China Sea is, on the right side, if you're looking at the map, it's all American allies. So they need some kind of buffer zone so that they can be a bit comfortable when it comes to national security. Just similarly, why Russia did what they did on Ukraine, so that NATO will not encroach and inch further into so-called Russian atmosphere. So similarly, with these two, we need to see them for what they actually do for the best of their country's interests, and not judge by how they do it or how certain politicians play on rhetoric. So I think BRICS would be a better platform for them to express the intention, whatnot. Especially that we look at the resolution and what they discuss is just everything is we can get behind of. I'm not sure you can say the same thing in the organization. All they talk about tariff, especially I'm talking about the European Union, right? Yeah, where they discuss is about putting on tariff on certain countries or whatever. What kind of free market attitude is this? If all you do try to stop people from progressing, but when you do it, you are okay. Like it's a free trade agreement for everyone. Please buy my stuff. No question asked. But if other countries that is not aligned with your so-called political belief, it's become a tariff. They try to overshadow us. This is not good. You try to take control of the world. So this kind of narrative can be effectively put aside with BRICS. We have a few minutes left. You have last thought?
Yeah, I think that is sort of a chink in the whole argument when it comes to them respecting the rules-based international order, because they don't. Okay, I think we have to make an addendum to that, is that they don't always follow. I think when it comes to national security in mind, like you mentioned, China in the South China Sea having a security interest there, and then Russia having one in Ukraine as well. Not to mention that there's also a lot of historical baggage associated with the South China Sea and Ukraine for respectively China and Russia. So I guess when it comes to particular things, it is very difficult for them to adopt the attitude of a rules-based international order. And I think just to further that argument is expecting a lot, because we've only just recently adopted the whole idea of a the global system being comprised of the nation state. So playing around with this globalized order and system is not going to be easy for everyone to transition into. The imperialist experiment and imperial experiment for a lot of countries is still, I think, very, very much there. It was only until 60, 70 years ago that the idea of empire fell out of fashion for a lot of countries, especially for Europe, whereas Russia was along with China was on the decline, then ascendant, and then back and forth. So I think there is things with, especially when history is associated, it's something very hard to decouple from. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to particular situations, it is hard to follow. I think also it's also a standard that is very difficult to uphold when so many competing interests are playing out all at the same time. So, if the confidence that BRICS can resolve a lot of these security issues will depend on how many future summits will conduct themselves. Like ASEAN has organizational and a diplomatic culture to it, which is very much enshrined. BRICS, I don't feel, has materialized a strong diplomatic culture, organizational culture yet. That when all the members come to the table, how would they conduct themselves, right? Because in the UN, there's kind of an expectation on how to conduct yourself as a representative there. But for BRICS, I think there's still a lot of experimentation on how they want to proceed.
Well, to listeners at home, do you agree with Malaysia participation in BRICS? If you agree or not, please write down and comment below. And next up, we are going to home again, just Sabah. And what are we going to talk about? Stay tuned for that.